Hi everyone, I'm Celeste. Happy July and happy 4th of July and happy 250th anniversary of the ratification of the Declaration of Independence. And it is July. My son and I just took a wonderful walk at a place called the Hidden Sidewalk here along Lake Ontario in New York State. And it was really delightful. It's not a very long walk, but it's kind of, it's what it says on the tin. It's a hidden sidewalk, but pedestrians can come and walk it. And there's some beautiful old summer cottages and some lakefront. There was a sailing race going on when we went. And then afterwards, we went to the little park that's nearby and got some custard ice cream in dishes and ate that. So that was a lot of fun and very summery. I don't know if you noticed in the video, but there are wren houses. Some of them are quite large and they're kind of like apartment buildings for the birds along Lake Ontario, the shorebirds. So it's just a really neat place to visit. And they have some cottages that are in sort of Art Deco style, like if you think of Hercule Poirot having a summer holiday in a cottage, think of like a little white Art Deco cottage with that sort of style of architecture, except along a lake, and then like lounge chairs that he could sit in and look out at the water, or his little stool that he carries around with him. And then there's also some Victorian cottages with closed-in porches and chaise lounges and wicker furniture and all of that. So just really, really neat. It is July. This is very impromptu. I have no script for this. I am just winging it. I actually found some books in storage that I had forgotten I wanted to read this summer, and I already did a summer TBR with you. So absolutely, I will not get to all of these, but I did want to share them with you because I had sort of earmarked them and put them aside for that purpose. Even before that, though, I do want to share a lovely little mini haul of books that I received from Pen and Sword Press. You know, I am a history fan, especially of social history. And, you know, especially with it being 4th of July weekend and all of that, I thought I would share these history books, this sort of mini haul of books that I got from Pen and Sword Press. They very kindly sent me all of these titles. So the first one up I have been thoroughly enjoying. This is the one I've been reading, and this is called The Colonial First Ladies, and then the Mrs. Washington, Adams, and Madison. This is by Feather Schwartz Foster. This is quite good. Is it earth-shattering? Does it make huge revelations you've never heard before? I don't know, but I always love learning more about the First Ladies. I did know a bit more already about Abigail Adams and a little bit about Martha Washington. I did not know anything about Dolly Madison, and so I think of the three, Dolly and James Madison were the biggest surprises, welcome surprises to me. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It does go into their daily life. Martha was married and widowed before she met George. That was interesting, and it kind of goes into how if she ever remarries, the man that she marries will actually be the guardian of her children and of any estate or monies or wealth that she possesses, because that's the way they rolled back then. So it does go into detail about that. There's a very sad section about Abigail Adams' daughter, who had actually become ill. And you know, even though sometimes we tend to, through our patriotism, idolize the past. Some parts of the past weren't all that cozy and wonderful, and her suffering with her illness is just heart-wrenching to read about. And as I said, Dolly Madison, the author kind of separates out the myths that we've all heard about Dolly Madison and what was true and what maybe wasn't so true. So what a perfect read for this past week. It's been delightful. I've been sitting out in my lounge chair in the late afternoon with a cold drink. We've had a horrible heat wave here. And I've just been eating this book up. I've been enjoying it immensely. So that's The Colonial First Ladies. And then what a delight this is. This is a brand new title that was just released like last week or the week before. So, so excited to receive this biography. It's the author of Mary Poppins, The Unknown Story of P.L. Travers by Elizabeth Galvin. And again, it's Pen and Sword Press. Actually, now this one says White Owl, so what does that mean? Does that mean it's not Pen and Sword? Let me take a look here. White Owl. Oh, White Owl is an imprint of Pen and Sword books. Okay, so I've just started to glance at this, but it's already really super interesting. And there is a bunch of photos and drawings in the middle section here. And I love the little illustrations and decorations on the flaps. Here's the back showing P.L. Travers. And it's about her early life, the impact that her father had on her and her mother. It sorts out sort of what is biographical in Mary Poppins and what is not. It talks about how she was born in rural Australia, and but some things I did not know. Now, I have not gotten to this part yet, but it does say that she became a pioneering journalist in Russia, wrote propaganda for the war effort in New York, lived on a Navajo Indian reservation, and was only the second Western woman to study Zen in Kyoto. So lots of facets and dimensions of P.L. Travers' life that I did not know about. I and my son also love the movie Saving Mr. Banks. Of course, we love Mary Poppins, but I also love the movie Saving Mr. Banks. Now, I know that parts of that are fictitious. They were sort of dramatized and embellished for the movie. I just got those, and so much I want to know, so many questions, and this just... I love the cover. It's just so pretty. And I love that it's investigating lesser known aspects of her life and her work beyond Mary Poppins. So if you are a Mary Poppins or P.L. Travers fan, then this may be the book for you. Now, you know, as a history aficionado, I've brought you a number of hauls on this channel, and one of those included a book by Bethan Watts called Inside the Tudor Home, Daily Life in the 16th Century. Well, this is another book by Bethan Watts. Bethan, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I'm sorry if I'm not. And it is the dark and dingy underworld of the Victorian slums. I am so looking forward to reading this one. I'm not sure if I'm going to read it this summer or if I'm going to save it for Victober. Here's the back cover of this one. Isn't that marvelous? And I just sort of browsed through it again. There's a bunch of photos in the center. There's a tenement, for example. Bethan Watts focuses especially on social history. She has an interest in daily life, what people ate, what people wore, how they lived, what toys did the children have to play with, what medicines did they take, what were the technologies of the day, what were the drinks that they drank, how did they do their laundry, all kinds of things like that. And the thing I especially love about Bethan Watts's writing is that, just because a person may know their material does not mean they are good at sharing that material or teaching that material. Like you may be able to learn lots and lots of facts as a scholar about a particular subject, but it takes a particular skill to be able to convey it to a readership or to students in a way that's lively and keeps you engaged and holds your attention. And Bethan Watts has all the skills. She's able to incorporate everything into an interesting and lively account that you want to keep turning the pages because it's so interesting. And I just glanced over a little bit of material on Marianne Cotton's murderous story and what it was like to live in the tenements. I'm especially interested in disability history and mental health history, and it's in here too, of course, Dickens, and all kinds of things, just all kinds of fascinating tidbits that I think would really enhance anyone's understanding of life in the Victorian era. So far, it's just so cool, so much fun, so lively, and quick moving and interesting. So thank you, Bethan Watts, for writing this book, and thank you, Pen and Sword Press, for sending the dark and dingy underworld of the Victorian slums. And then lastly, from Pen and Sword Press, I did receive this book. Now, I'll be honest, I know nothing about this one. I had asked for a different title, and they didn't have that one, unfortunately. So as sort of a consolation prize, they did send me this book. This is called A History of Women in Music from Antiquity to Present Day. And this is by DeBakcsy, I think is how you would say that. And it is what it says. It's a sort of a survey of women in music from all different eras. And so yeah, don't know anything about this, but I'm looking forward to having a browse at this one at some point as well. I would like to take an opportunity to give a really heartfelt shout out to Pen and Sword and their sort of distribution arm, which is called Casemate, because they have always, during my time on BookTube, just been so friendly, so accommodating, so willing to work with smaller creators and history enthusiasts. And so just thank you very much for sharing your publications and your love of history with all of us history geeks out there. Now I would like to go on to some of the other books which would be wonderful to read in July if I have the time. And this is a vintage copy of a book that I picked up from eBay quite a while ago, and it is called Calico Captive by Elizabeth George Speare. This is a girl's book. This has a lovely cover. Let me just open it up so that you can see it. Sorry if the ring light is shining on it, but isn't that lovely? Now, this book, I don't know a lot about it. I have read other books, of course, by Elizabeth George Speare, but this is one that when I was a little girl, my friend Patsy recommended, and she had this one on her bookshelf. I used to go over and have sleepovers over at Patsy's house once in a while, and this was one of the books she had proudly displayed on her bedroom shelf, and so I always wanted this book and I always wanted to read it. And I may finally get the chance this month in July. And this is the story of a young woman named Miriam Willard, and she is, I'm going to say, probably somewhere between 16 and 20 years of age, I would guess. And it's 1754. She's in Charleston, New Hampshire. I think she was waiting for a marriage proposal or something like that. They were going to announce their marriage. It does sound like there's a little bit of stereotyping of the Native Americans, but so obviously this is before the American Revolution. This is when the colonies are in effect, and she's in New Hampshire, and the shrill war whoops and terror of an Indian raid descend on Charleston. And she finds herself caught up in the ebb and flow of the French and Indian War, and she is a captive. And so this is the story of her time as a captive, her adventures. And so yeah, in terms of how accurate this could be or how Indigenous peoples are portrayed, I'm going to sort of take that with a grain of salt, but the reason I'm interested in it is because of Elizabeth George Speare's wonderful writing style, her ability to just tell an exciting story. And it says this is based on an actual narrative diary published in 1807, and it reenacts an absorbing facet of history. It was published in 1957 by Elizabeth George Speare. And yeah, so I don't know what ends up happening to her, but we shall find out. Calico captive. And then speaking of other Newbery Awards, this is another Newbery Honor book. This is like a relatively new one, I think. I don't know where I heard about this or why I have this. It is called Wolf Hollow by Lauren Wolk. And there's some nice foiling on there. And it did win the Newbery Honor. Despite growing up in the shadows cast by 2 world wars, Annabelle has lived a mostly quiet and steady life in her small Pennsylvania town until the day a new student, Betty Glengarry, walks into her class. Betty is cruel and manipulative, and Annabelle tries to avoid her. And then there's another character named Toby who is a recluse. Oh, now I know why I got this. Toby is a reclusive World War I veteran. You know, World War I is my thing. And Toby soon becomes the target of Betty's attacks, and while others see Toby's strangeness, Annabelle knows only kindness. As tensions mount in their small community, Annabelle must find the courage to stand as a lone voice for justice. Doesn't sound that far off from what we're facing right now in our country. And of course, I love disability representation, and I love stories centered around the Great War. So, and it sounds like it's also a coming of age story. So this might also be a good one for the fall. I don't know, but Wolf Hollow, and that is Lauren Wolk. And then this I found at a library tag sale. Again, I know nothing about it, but it won a Newbery Award, and it's a hardcover. It's a beautiful cover, and I think it was like $1, so how could I not get this? It is The 21 Balloons by William Penn Du Bois. Just look how gorgeous that is. And it's a hardcover. There's the back. How colorful and wonderful. Oh, and this is actually a withdrawn book from a grammar school. Look at the little stamp inside there. Isn't that cute? So this was a grammar school book, okay, and it's the story of the most incredibly fabulous voyage around the world in the history of travel. William Waterman Sherman left San Francisco in August 1883 in a balloon with an intention of flying across the Pacific Ocean. He was picked up 3 weeks later in the Atlantic, clinging to the wreckage of a platform which had been flown through the air by 20 balloons. That sounds interesting. So, never read it, have never heard it spoken about, don't know a thing about it, but that sounds interesting. So, yeah, The 21 Balloons. The next two books, I have always intended on my channel, you know, I like to do sort of themed videos and hauls and things. I had it in my mind that I was going to do this great video all centered around books about children or people flying. And one of you guys still should do that, because I think that's just the coolest topic. Speaking of Mary Poppins, there's so many that you could choose from. Isn't that strange? But I think like a primal memory of flying is somewhere in our psyche and in our makeup, our DNA. But I had two books put aside for this project, but I've decided to share them with you today because I don't think I'm ever going to get to that video, to be honest with you. The first one I picked up at Savers for $1.29. The sticker will come off, so don't worry. This actually was not the cover I wanted. There is a much better book cover out there, which I will show you right here. But this is the one they happen to have in stock, so I got it. And I guess I will read this and then decide if I want to own the other cover. But this is No Flying in the House by Betty Brock. And there is a little girl named Annabelle Tippins. She has a tiny white dog who talks and wears a gold collar. And the dog's name is Gloria. And a wicked cat named Belinda comes along and tells her she's not actually a little girl, she's half fairy and she has magical powers. And so this is a book about magic, and it's called No Flying in the House. And I just think that's a lovely old-fashioned magical concept. I think it's really neat, and I'm looking forward to reading this. I'm thinking also back to books like, was it Amelia Bedelia that flew? I can't remember. But I love the illustrations in here as well. Pictures by Wallace Tripp, it says. And this was published in 1970. So that's the first book about flying. And then I also had acquired this book after I read the book Charlotte Sometimes by Penelope Farmer. I was on a huge Penelope Farmer kick. Unfortunately, Penelope Farmer's books are incredibly expensive. But I did find this one in this plastic sleeve, so I snapped it up, and this is called William and Mary. I love this cover too. Doesn't this look like a marvelous one to read in the summertime? And don't know much about this, but it says Mary is the only girl in a boys' boarding school, so that would fit in well with my boarding school trope videos as well. Mary is also the headmaster's daughter, and she ignored the boys around her at the boarding school, so she was unprepared for William's acceptance of her company one Easter holiday, and equally unprepared for the different kinds of sea magic into which they are precipitated. The source of the magic is a scimitar-shaped shell, which William keeps in his pocket, and once they have experienced the terrifying freedom it can give them, there is no turning back. And they're looking for the shell's other half, apparently. So, yeah. She writes books about magic and children. What a great combination. So don't know if it's any good, but what a lovely addition. It did not cost me much, and I figured why not. So it is William and Mary, and they do fly in this book. I also acquired this lovely book, and unfortunately it got caught in the rain a little bit, so it has buckled slightly. It is Michael Morpurgo's The Puffin Keeper. What a great cover on this. Illustrated by Benji Davies, and I just love the cover on that. And it says, when all hope seems lost, we saw through the darkness a boat coming for us. One man in a tiny rowing boat that was riding mountainous seas. The memory of that night was to stay with me all my life, and I made up my mind to go back to Puffin Island and find the man who had saved our lives. That sounds really cool. So it sounds like this book is relating an event that happened one stormy night when a four-masted schooner was driven onto the rocks by angry seas. Michael Morpurgo, of course, has written so many wonderful books, including War Horse, which I absolutely adore. So yeah, this just sounds like a delightful children's book, and it's a lovely hardcover. It's nicely illustrated, and it looks like it would be perfect for summertime. I also, speaking of nice illustrations, here is a Newbery Medal winner. And again, this is in plastic, so it may shine in the ring light, but the illustrations in this are fabulous. It is The White Stag by Kate Seredy. And again, I found this one at a library sale. I think this was one of the ones I got last fall. And it was the last day of the sale, and you could fill up brown paper grocery bags for $5 a bag. So I think this is Hungarian folk history. It says, the voices of pagan gods thunder through this epic story of the coming of Attila the Hun. Phenomenally beautiful. Look at the end pages. And let's see what we have here. Oh, it's illustrated by the author. So Kate Seredy is apparently also an illustrator. Here is the epic story of the migration of the Huns and Magyars, Kate Seredy's remote ancestors, from Asia to Europe. So like creation stories maybe, or foundation stories. And let's just see what we've got. Oh, wow. Okay, these are beautiful. Let me find you some illustrations to look at here. Now that is an illustration. You know, I appreciate the work that sort of young graphic novelists do in kind of a comic book style today. But then when I see illustrations like this, I'm sorry, but I prefer this kind of old school illustration. I think it shows such talent and imagination, and it's truly, truly an art. Okay, are you kidding me? Look at this. Gorgeous. Gorgeous. And also written and illustrated by Kate Seredy are The Chestry Oak, The Good Master, which is very popular, The Singing Tree, and A Tree for Peter. So I think I'm probably going to want all of her books and all of her illustrations, and I will start with this one, The White Stag. Finally, I have two books that I picked up a long time ago and just never really got to. I am a huge fan of the illustrator Robert Ingpen, and I happened to see these two books. I was actually looking for a different book that's illustrated by Robert Ingpen, and it's, I think it takes place in Australia, and it may be about an Aboriginal girl. I think there's a train, something about tea or Christmas. I'll put the cover here so that I can't remember it off the top of my head right now, but came across these two in the process, and they were so reasonably priced. I was like, why are these so cheap? And they're in beautiful condition. So I did pick up Jules Verne's Around the World in 80 Days, and that is illustrated by Robert Ingpen. There's an illustration on the back. Again, just incredible illustrations all throughout. Robert Ingpen is just a master. I love his illustrations. I love how he sees the world. It's just beautiful. He has a very specific style. It's classic, but at the same time, it's a little different. It's a little off. Something is just a little bit unique and peculiar about his illustrations, and that's what I love. And then I found this abridged classic edition of L. Frank Baum's The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. I actually saw this one first on my friend Heather's channel, Water Bear Reads, and I liked it so much that I wanted an edition of my own because this cover is everything. Sign me up, say less. I mean, just the way Dorothy looks in this, it's just my brand of eccentricity. I just love it. Look at the end papers in this. It's just got that sense of whimsy and peculiarness that I think is just fabulous. There's the wizard, I think. Ah, love it. Love it. Again, this looks like a great one for summer. So all in all, these are pretty much vintage children's books. And I had them all set aside in a pile. And these are ones that I had intended to read this summer, this July. I may still get to some of these. I do have that other pile I'm slowly making my way through that I presented to you a couple of weeks ago, but I am absolutely going to get to at least 3 or 4 of these books. Which ones do you think I should read? Let me know in the comments below if any of these tickled your fancy or you think they're particularly wonderful and I should get to them sooner rather than later. Oh, and I just did want to make an announcement that over the next few weeks I will be doing some special videos in my Girl Sleuth series. They're not necessarily sleuths, the next ones I'm going to talk about, but they are series books for girls. And the first video up that I will be sharing with you, hopefully next week, if not next week, then the week after that. But it will be on early series books for girls from the turn of the century, so early 1900s. And what I'm exploring is who were the forerunners of Nancy Drew from about 1899 to 1930. So that will be like a part 1, and then there will be 2 more videos following up on that with other series books for girls. It's an exciting project that I'm having a lot of fun with, and so I do hope you will join me for that. I'm learning so much about all of the series and all of the pseudonyms, the pen names that people went under, like Laura Lee Hope, for example. So join me, if you will, next time around for that. And then also look out for an announcement in my like a community post that I will be putting out soon. In August, I will be coming up on my 4-year anniversary on BookTube. I can't believe I've been here for 4 years, had this channel for 4 years. And so I have decided to open up the floor to questions from you, my viewers, and the community. And I do have an email that's listed in my YouTube profile if you would prefer to email me a question. And the questions I will be addressing will be anything about books. You can ask me other things if you like. I'm not going to go into too much of my private life, but I would be happy to talk about career, my career, other jobs I've had that deal with books, with writing, with libraries, with teaching, and with website development. So if you'd like to know about any of that, let me know, or any questions about favorite books, least favorite books, most challenging books. So, those kinds of questions, or things about my channel, like what, my favorite video, least favorite, what was the hardest one to make, the easiest one, the most fun, etc., etc. So all of that being said, look out for both of those things, and I hope you have had a wonderful 4th of July weekend during this very eccentric time in our nation's history. But I hope you've had a great time with family and that you're safe and doing well. And we will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.